you, Gretchen. I appreciate the opportunity and the setup. And it is Family Day. We spend lots of time working with family farms, and I have a gaggle of 3 at home who I would have sneaked into the show, Gretchen, if there was a viable way to do it, but I couldn't figure it out. So I am going to talk a lot about kids and nutrition and areas that we believe are of particular importance. I'm here as an entrepreneur, as a foodie, and really very much as a parent. And the way I spend my time now, at least my good chunks of every day, is thinking about how to make sure that we get kids the foods they need to develop to their full potential. I'm going to talk about that up here, and afterwards, and after we hear from a couple of additional presenters, I think we'll be up again to take a few questions. So I guess the best way to start is to start at the beginning, and this is the beginning. This is my clan, and the reason that I'm up here really originated with the little guy on the bottom left, who isn't quite that little anymore, but it was his birth that really prompted my journey into a deeper exploration of kids and appropriate nutrition. And to be a little bit more specific, when he was born, my wife ended up getting pneumonia shortly thereafter, and unlike our 2 older kids, she wasn't able to breastfeed. And everything worked out fine, as you might imagine, but inside families, you know, there are these little crises, and this definitely amounted to one of those inside the family crises. And the good news for me was I had spent enough time working in food and in nutrition previously, having started companies, that I was able to go out at the behest of my wife and on behalf of the little guy there and start asking questions. And what I ended up doing was I ended up going and finding a lot of people who I had come into contact with over the years, what I would call really a list of best and brightest, and asked them and said, look, you know, he's, 4 weeks old, he can't be breastfed. How do we handle this? And I think we kind of knew what the answer was anyway, but it was important. Wanted to go out and talk to people. And we're talking about, a lot of the people who did seminal work of development for the major infant formula companies, pediatric neurologists, pediatric gastroenterologists. And I will say that there was a little bit of a, Bay Area chill. And that chill was directed toward me and my wife, because the answer was, he'll be fine, and we'll tell you why. And so what came out of these discussions essentially was this, and it's not nearly as complicated as it looks. What it really says, it talks about the first 1,000 days, which are from conception to about 2 years old. And during that period of time, kids, moms, and then kids are receiving a lot of critical nutrients that we know are essential for development through first prenatal vitamins and then either breast milk or formula. And interestingly, what we really do care about, particularly in the first world, is we care about brain and eye development, which are closely related. We care about that an awful lot. And a lot of the critical nutrients that are required for brain and eye development are, obviously, you can imagine they're all in breast milk, and many of them are now also in formula. So the answer was, chill. He'll be fine. Don't be such a Bay Area parent, and relax. Give him formula. But the other thing that came out was, what about your older kids? And to me, it was, well, they're fine. They seem to be fine. But the question was, well, their brains are still growing really, really rapidly, and they still need a lot of critical nutrients for that brain development. Are they eating the foods that will provide those? My answer kind of was, given how much I was thinking about the infant, my answer was, I don't know. And it turns out it's not really a surprise what they are, but are your kids eating trout? Are they eating salmon? Are they eating Brussels sprouts? Are they eating walnuts? And as you continue to go down that list, for me it was nope, 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 Nope. And it's not a question that we didn't want our kids to get the right nutrients in foods they naturally exist in, but it is a question of wanting to make sure that they get the right nutrients anyway. And as someone who started a number of companies, and at least I think of myself as an entrepreneur, this was the moment for me. It was both the challenge, because it directly addressed things which I believed we needed to do for my older kids, but also the opportunity, and the opportunity, more broadly speaking, to make a difference. So without getting into too much detail, you can walk in any grocery store. It can be a big grocery store, it can be a small neighborhood grocery store, and you can find products with a host of little muscle pictograms or bones, and find that both food companies and parents are obsessing about getting kids enough protein for their muscles and calcium for their bones. But, and I haven't really yet had anyone challenge this, we're missing something huge. And in fact, feeding their brains are going to have the biggest impact on their future, on their happiness and everything else. And the reality is that we now know that there are nutrients that are critical for their brain developments. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about those. I'm not going to get too down into the weeds there, but that was, okay, there's something here, there's something important, there's something to do. I brought in a guy that I had worked with and founded companies with, and as I said, together we've started a number of businesses that have done well. We also have battle scars along the way, but we decided, as two dads, combined with 6 kids who are almost the same age, this was how we wanted to spend our time now. This was important to us, and this is how we wanted to spend our time. And beyond that, it really, you have to ask yourself a question, which is the opportunity there? Is there any awareness there? So then, for me, historically, I've always looked and thought to myself, what are the hallmarks? And so here, the conversation starts with experts. Okay, these are books that have been published in the last few years around the importance of nutrition as it relates to the brain. So it starts with experts, and then, if it's moving in the right trajectory, it moves to the trade. So these are trade publications over the last 2 years, and it's clear now that the trade and people who are taking notice of where food trends are going are clearly paying attention to brain nutrition as well. But I can tell you that experts and the trade are definitely not enough to build a consumer business around. And the good news is it's moved from there into the mainstream recognition of importance for kids. And I think some of this is related to how infant formulas have been formulated over the past 15 or 20 years, and a much greater recognition that how we feed our kids can have an impact on their brain, on their academic performance, on attention, on reading, on test scores, on a whole host of things. So this is the good news that we looked at and said, okay, there's enough there. Even though when I walk into a store now, I'm not seeing products that are necessarily advertising the importance of food-based brain nutrition. So then you also think about what's out there. How are you going to do something that's going to fit? And so as you walk around the show floor here or at some other larger trade shows, you'll see some unique products. You'll see a whole lot of things that are maybe very delicious, particularly at this show, but are things that in some way, shape, or form have been around for a long time. As you think about the baby sector and the young kids sector, that is evolving. It's a lot of that evolution, though, is happening outside the grocery store. It's happening outside the aisles. It's based on better ingredients. It's based on more personalized nutrition. It's based on things that matter, and parents are responding in kind. But if you then roll into the grocery store, and this is not an absolute, this is a mostly, the innovation you'll find in the grocery store for kids is really different. You'll find yogurts where the innovation is that they're flavoring the yogurts after well-known candy. You'll find fruit roll-ups that their claim to fame is that they will put a tattoo on your kid's tongue. So, without being too, doom and gloomy. I would just say that there's still an enormous opportunity to innovate for the benefit of kids inside the grocery store and on those aisles and on those shelves. And that really to us presented a lot of the opportunity that we decided we really wanted to tackle. So then it's also who are you and what matters to you. And if you're going to start a company, you know that the foundation of that company is really going to impact everything at the end of the day. And so for us, one of the first things we did, and I think we were one of the very earliest in terms of young stage food companies to do this, was we went through the process to become a certified B Corporation, which involved a whole lot of steps about not just shareholder value, but how you work through providing benefit to the community, to through animals welfare, through sustainability, through a whole host of other things. But beyond that, we also thought about the pillars that mattered. And so broadly accessible, right? We are not focused on premium kids' food. We're focused on foods that are broadly accessible, that are priced well within the range that you would find in a grocery store, in any grocery store. I'm not talking about only very high-end grocery stores. Broadly accessible because if you want to make a difference, then parents have to be able to afford to buy it for their kids. Better and healthier, we know more now. So it means cleaner ingredient decks. It means fewer ingredients. It means less sugar. It does not mean no sugar, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but it means less sugar. And then for us, it's about brain nutrition. It's about delivering the critical nutrients that we know are super important. And as you guys could guess, it is also very much about taste and sensory, because if kids don't like it, they won't keep eating it. You may sell it to the parents once, and then the kids will vote. And they literally vote every time you take that out in the morning. So if you can't figure out a way to focus on taste and sensory for kids, you're not going to have a product that lasts very long. So what we did was we pulled together that group I showed you early on, and we formalized them into a science and nutrition advisory board, and we asked them to help formulate the critical elements that had really strong science. There's lots of things that may impact brain development in a positive way, but we were looking for the things that really had strong science behind them because we're bringing them to kids. And so, for example, what you're looking at here on the left is you're looking at DHA EPA, which is a critical long-chain omega-3 that creates the scaffolding in a kid's brain. And if you look at red, you're looking at current nutrient intakes in the U.S. As defined by the CDC's every few years NHANES What We Eat in America survey. That's in red. And in blue, you're looking at the World Health Organization and FAO's recommendations for kids of those ages. And there's a massive gap. Choline is another really strong example, and it really just got recognition. I think in 2019 it got recognition as critical for kids' brain development, finally by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Choline is the main element of acetylcholine, which is the main neurotransmitter. So kids are less deficient, and the deficiencies vary by age here, but they're still only getting maybe about 2/3 of the choline that they need, which is a critical element of their brains, like DHA. In fact, DHA, should point out, is close to 15% of a kid's brain by dry weight, and they're just not getting what they need. So the parent's dilemma, right? You want to give them the right foods, you have the best laid plans, but it's only nutritious if they eat it. And so this has been a big focus for us. We've heard from lots of parents, I want to do these things, I want to give them the right food, I want to make it delicious. But in the end, since you're fighting that battle every day, ultimately, often you end up feeding kids foods they like rather than the foods that you know you should be getting them to eat. There's been a ton written on this, and I can't tell you how many authors I've talked to over the years, and they all tell you, you just have to get your kids to try it this many times, you'll cross this threshold. Yeah, well, look, I'll tell you, we've tried everything. I've talked to so many parents who read and try, and the bottom line is, it's really hard to get kids to eat the foods that you want them to. So what we did was we developed Brainiac Kids. The first product launches are yogurts. They are really centered around something we call the Brain Pack, which is DHA, which is ALA, which is choline. These are critical nutrients for a kid's brain. But what we also did was we looked at what was on the market, what was selling broadly, and we decided we needed much better ingredients because we wanted things that both kids and parents could feel good about eating. We wanted to reduce sugar, so if you take those tubes, for instance, those tubes have more than 40% less sugar than the top-selling tubes on the market. We have drinks which have more than 50% less sugar than the top-selling drinks on the market. But when we do a lot of taste tests, kids still really like them. My point, though, is there is added sugar in there. It's just quite limited. In a 4-ounce drink, we have about 6 grams of total sugar, most of which is not added, most of which comes through in the dairy, but there is some added sugar in there. What it does and how we communicate this is also equally important. I mean, these are not necessarily messages people think about when they walk into the grocery store, so we thought a lot about how to explain to a parent. This is one of the ways that we found that parents can really identify and say, okay, I get it. Their kids are getting about 20% of the long-chain omega-3s they need, and after one 4-ounce drink, they're about 80% of the way there for the day. Similar with choline, about 2/3 of the way, and then after a 4-ounce drink, they're all the way there. Again, the point here isn't to discourage parents from feeding their kids the right foods. We strongly encourage that. I try it hard at home. This is not meant to replace the right foods. This is meant to supplement to the point that you can't get enough of the right foods into your kids, because at the end of the day, I think the way we think at Brainiac is you ultimately want your kids to reach their full potential, and you're going to figure out how to get them there. So most importantly, the reception in the market has been really wonderful. We've only been out, I think, commercially for about a little under a year, about 10 months now. And the feedback we're getting, kind of unsolicited, a lot of it comes through social media. It's really exciting. Kids like it. Parents appreciate it, and it's really starting to fire on all cylinders. We've gotten quite a fair bit of distribution, and again, just to go to my earlier point about accessibility, you'll see an array of different retailers that appeal to different segments, and the point there again is to create something accessible. If you want to bring this kind of benefit to parents, you want to make sure that it's something that a lot of parents can afford and a lot of kids can get the benefit of. So beyond that, the goal here isn't to be a yogurt company. The goal here is to be a food-based brain nutrition company. We're focusing on kids. So we launched our first product beyond kids, which are applesauce pouches. Again, they're lower sugar than what I would call the leaders in the marketplace. You can find them now on our own website, and as of Jan 1, you could also find them on Amazon. So we're getting great feedback there as well. This is another snack opportunity. We heard from a lot of parents, you need to make it easy for me. Make it easy for me. One way you can make it easy for me is by making a better version of something my kids may already be eating, and put the right nutrients in, but also less sugar, better ingredients. So that's part of this rolling process of introducing a whole host of different foods to kids that are going to help parents make sure the kids get what they need and the kids are going to enjoy. So make the point here, lower sugar, we covered those up, but if you spend 10 seconds with Nielsen or anything else, you can figure out who they are. Lower sugar plus DHA, choline, EPA, no added sugar here, really trying hard to do the right thing. And really that's where we are today. As I think I just alluded to, we're working on a host of other things at the moment, but we're very focused on making sure that we are part of the discussion to inform parents about food-based brain nutrition for their kids, and particularly about the nutrients that are absolutely essential for their kids' brain development. And the science is there, and it's also a reality that most kids aren't getting what they need. Now, sitting here in the Bay Area with a lot of parents, some of you may be very successful at getting your kids to eat what they need, and by all means, that's awesome. But to the extent you're not, we're here to provide and assist. I appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.